And we're live. Hey guys, this is Quentin West here. I'm here with David Benson. He's one of our upcoming speakers at the Capital Connection. His specialty revolves around Section 8 rentals and single family investing. David has a extremely impressive portfolio, over 180 units in the Winston-Salem area alone. So what's going on, David? Appreciate you being on here.
Not a problem. My pleasure. Thanks for inviting me to be here.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, David, we kind of been friends a little bit now, I feel like, but we've never dove directly into your story and how you got started in real estate investing. So, do you mind telling us a little bit about that? Like, what was life like before real estate, and kind of what was the process for you to get involved in as many units as you have now?
Yeah. I don't think the goal was ever to have a gazillion properties or whatever. I just have always had a desire for freedom. That's always somehow been ingrained into me, is what would that be like to have control of your time and money?
Yeah.
And so when I got started, it's probably like many people. I read a book by Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, right? It's like the Bible of real estate investing. And if you haven't read it, that needs to be your next acquisition. Before you buy any properties, buy Rich Dad, Poor Dad. But what it did is it created a spark in my brain, because if you think about it, we've got, 12 to 16 years of indoctrination of get a job, right? And that's a hard thing to break. So I was like, okay, I need to get a good education, go to the right school, get a good job, and buckle down and save. But when I read that Robert Kiyosaki book, I was like, well, wait a minute, like this makes a lot of sense. Like maybe there's almost like the Matrix, when you take the red pill or the blue pill.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, how do I do this? Right? Like probably like a lot of folks watching this, how do I do this? It's a good in theory, because it's a book, right? You've got to have different streams of income coming in. But as that seed began to grow, I started to think, okay, outside the box, pretty much. So my first real estate investment was the house that I lived in. So I was living in Rural Hall, had a little 3-bedroom, 2-bath house, and I wanted to, buy another house.
Yeah.
So the normal formula is you sell your house, you take that down payment, whatever you had in, whatever equity you had, and then you buy the next house, right? You're going to upgrade.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So what Robert kind of talked about in that book, and probably many books out there, is what if I rented that house, and let's say my payment on that house was $1,000, and my new house payment on the other one was $1,600. Let's say this was back in the day, right?
Yeah.
This was before 8% rates,
Oh yeah.
Although I say that, it probably was 8%, to be honest with you, because this was many moons ago.
Prices were lower though, so it compensates for that a little bit.
Yeah. But what happened is I was able to rent that first house for and cash flow about $400. I remember it being about $400 because I was thinking, wait, I'm going to get this double house, but instead of my house being double, what really hit my wallet was $200 a month.
Yeah.
What's a no-brainer, right?
Oh yeah.
That's what kind of planted the seed. And it wasn't like I went to, like I had this epiphany or something like that, but that's kind of what started it. And then I was like, well, if I could do that, and I started thinking, you start thinking about how can I make money work for me? How can I make this asset like a house with equity just sitting there? I've heard it described, equity is literally like money just sleeping, equity in your house. So I was talking to somebody the other day, and I was like you wouldn't take your money and go and give it to the bank. Like, let's say you got $100,000 equity in your house. You wouldn't go take that money and take 100,000, give it to the banker and say, hey, don't worry about me. Like, don't pay me any interest. Don't put my money to work. In fact, let it depreciate because of inflation. Like, you would never dream to do that. But folks that have money sitting in, and of course, this isn't a Dave Ramsey seminar because he would tell you the opposite, but don't let money just sit there doing nothing. Like, put it to work. So that's a whole nother story. We can go down that road if you want to as well. But that was my first property.
Okay. And where were you working at this time? Like how old were you? You know, what was your life like at this point?
Mhm.
You know, a lot of people when I talk to them, like what you're describing is kind of like house hacking. You're
Yeah.
buying a new house and you're renting out the old one. But and I kind of did the same thing, but that mindset kind of comes from, you know, not having a ton of money and using the resources you have.
Yeah.
So, what were you doing during that time? And like, did you have a ton of money that you could have thrown into real estate, or like what was your mindset at that point?
No, I mean, I was working at the bank, so that's been my background. So my background is working for, Fortune 500 bank, for 20 plus years.
Okay.
So, but this was, let's take it back. I think this was 2004. So what's that, about 18 years ago,
Yeah.
So that was my first ever real estate. So I was working for the bank. Um, and no, I didn't like inherit money, or it's just, a s and one thing that I think a lot of people can relate to is we have seen a huge appreciation in housing.
Yeah.
So anybody that has a house could quite honestly, you know, follow the same path I took, which is, yes, maybe you're not putting $5,000 a month aside for your real estate
Mhm.
investing, maybe, but what you may not realize is your house has been putting $5,000 a month aside for real estate investing, because if you can tap into that appreciation and house hack, it's a good way to kind of get your foot in the door, and that's how I got started. So to answer your question, I was working the W-2 job
Yeah.
and saving, got that first one. And then what I did then was I started doing lease options,
Okay.
which is, here's what happened. I would go find a rental house, right? So after that, I started kind of thinking and started looking. Well, this was 2004 to like 2008. Well, we know what happened in 2008, right? The bottom fell out. Real estate, you were buying it for pennies on the dollar. And what was happening is, which I predict, write it down, this will happen again, is there will be a, not to the same extent, but lenders won't lend, renters will no longer, people that were normally buyers, right, because rates were low, were wanting to rent. So I had this pool of people that wanted to rent, but I didn't have houses. So
Yeah.
so I was able to kind of pick up some houses cheaply because banks weren't lending, and then I had some qualified renters that had money that could do a lease option. And what a lease option is we understand rentals, right? So you want to rent a house, you go and you say, all right, it's $1,000 a month, and you need to give me $1,000 deposit. With a lease option, is you're not renting, you are buying it at a future date. So you're agreeing to buy this house that I bought for 100,000. I'm going to sell it to you for 120. So I'm going to make money there. You're going to have to put $5,000 to $8,000 down, just like you would a down payment. And essentially what happens is I become the bank. I
Yeah.
still own the house. I still get the tax benefits, but you get the opportunity to buy it at a future date at a set price. The advantage to me is I don't have any repairs because it's your house. You're giving me a big chunk of money, which is what I'm using for the down payment when I bought it, kind of paying myself back. And for them, they're not having to go through the whole banking process. Maybe their credit's kind of shaky, so they gives them some time to kind of clean it up. So that's where I got started. So I was able to kind of use their money, use my credit, use my knowledge of the banking system to kind of get about 8 to 10 more properties doing that.
Yeah.
It's just getting creative,
Oh
right?
yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Thinking
'Cause
outside the
you're
box.
basically, I mean, you technically you had to have the money for the down payment, but you were getting it paid right back to you. So you,
Exactly.
you could have even done like a cash advance or something on a couple credit cards to for the down payment, and then paid them back off once you got a lease with the option to purchase in there,
Yep.
and been in the property with none of your own money.
Just essentially recycling that same money.
Yep.
So again, if we talk about, if you have a home equity loan or if you have a credit card, I'm not recommending using, I never use my credit card, but it's possible if you knew you had a good a slam dunk deal.
Absolutely.
You got $20,000 in your home equity line. You get it reimbursed. Then you do it again, and you do it again, and you do it again, and it just kind of starts to snowball. But it's a good way to kind of get your foot in the door on your first property, which is
Yeah.
what essentially. Like I said, I didn't have a trust fund. I didn't have a big, I didn't get like $100,000 bonus at the end of the year that I could go use, buy a bunch of property.
Yeah.
But you just get creative. And I think what we're going to see over the next, probably more so than any time in our lifetime, is we're going to see more creative financing starting to happen over the next 12 to 24 to 36 months, as people don't want to give up their 3% rate they have on their house,
Yeah.
but yet they need money for their next house or all kinds of different situations. So it's going to be an interesting time.
Yeah. I've even heard some people are upside down in their mortgages where prices have, gone down a little bit, and now they've got to move. So, and if they want to move, they need cash to pay off their existing mortgage.
Yeah.
Seen a lot of like subject to purchases, and
Mm-hmm.
people taking over the existing mortgage, and that way they can then go and buy another property and kind of wipe their hands clean from the one they're in now. So
Yeah.
I agree with you. I think the creative stuff is going to really, you're going to see more of it here soon.
Yeah.
So did you have a mentor during this time, or anybody kind of helping you or teaching you, or was this stuff that you kind of learned from the bank and then just repurposed it for your own financial gain?
Yeah. No. The simple answer is no. The reason it's taken me 18 years, quite honestly, to build this to what it is today is because I didn't. I
Yeah.
mean, the explosion that happened, quite honestly, has been in the last 3 years.
Yeah.
And that is, so imagine this, from 2004, from reading a book to probably, I should pull it up and I could tell you exactly, but people think that success is like a straight line, right? It's like this hockey stick. It just goes flat, and then it kind of whoop. That's my story.
Absolutely.
So year one property. Year two properties. Year three properties. And I think we could expand that out to probably 10 years. I might have had 10, 12, 14 properties maybe in 10 years. And then up until 3 years ago, it was maybe 25, 26.
Yeah.
And through the roof. The difference is, and I'm giving a long route to get to the question. The difference is really getting a mentor and learning two things: learning what you don't know. For me to learn different techniques, different creative ways, especially right now with creative financing, thinking outside the box. Because remember, I had this banker mindset. Like,
Yeah.
you get a mortgage, you pay it down, you wait 5 years for equity to accrue, you refinance, you buy another one. The stuff which is, maybe, which works, right?
Definitely works.
It definitely works. But what if I had a mentor? What if I had somebody that had paved the road instead of me trailblazing through the forest like the Oregon Trail? What
Yeah.
if what if right beside that forest there was a super highway and a bus that I could get on? Like,
Most of the time that's the case.
yeah,
You're
yeah,
you're hedging right next to, an alternate decision that would have taken you there 10 times faster.
yep,
Just you can't see it because
nope.
you've got your head down. You're acting within your own knowledge, and that's as far as you can go.
Whacking away at it with a dull machete. I mean,
Exactly. So, like we met at one of Tim's events.
yep,
Like, would you say around 3 years ago is when you got involved with Tim and like
yeah,
his mastermind?
yep. It was around that time.
Okay, yeah. So, I mean, I know I can speak for myself, but like the masterminds and the coaching and mentors have all played a significant role in just increasing my mindset as a whole, my
Absolutely.
education, my network, everything. I mean, if I wouldn't have gone to the event for Tim, I wouldn't have met you. So,
See, it's it does a couple things. Like, Tim is the reason. I don't want to give him full credit for
yeah,
this. Might go to his head, but but he did kind of hold my hand to the fire and say,
Yeah.
Dave, you got to quit your job. He's like, Dave, you're whacking away at this jungle. Quit your job, which sounds crazy, right? Quit your job, go 2 paces to the left and get on the superhighway.
Yeah.
And he was not wrong, right?
Yeah.
Because and it's hard to take that leap. And a lot of times you need a coach, you need a mentor that believes in you or sees something in you more than you see in yourself,
Yeah.
right? Because they have the full view. And the biggest thing, and I want your take on this too, I think you probably agree, is just not only that believability that you can do it, Quentin can do it, but removing that glass ceiling that we all keep on ourselves, which
Yeah.
is, okay, 20 properties, man, I'm crushing it, right?
Yeah.
Why am I not doing 40? Why am I not doing 100? Tim's
Yeah.
got 4,000, right? Like, I can look at Tim and he's a superstar, right? I know I can be half a superstar. And if
Yeah.
half a superstar is 2,000 properties, I can live with that,
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's the same thing for me. Like before I started expanding into events and networking and that whole rabbit hole. I mean, even before Tim's event, I had 30 something units at the time and I thought I was crushing it.
Yeah.
And I show up to the event and I'm like the smallest guy there. I mean, really.
It can be intimidating. Yeah, it's certainly intimidating.
You've got Tim, you've got Alex Quesada, who's got, I don't even know, hundreds, if not thousands of units, self storage, everything else,
Yeah.
Airbnbs. So, like, the guys like that really make you level up and stop playing so small.
Yep.
I think our problem is, the way that we're raised up, it's the mindset is so small, and we don't branch out into the actual possibilities.
Right.
We only perform within what we think is possible in the beginning. And if we're not opened up and exposed to other people doing bigger things, then our mindset of our capabilities will never increase.
Yeah. Well, and you opened, I give you credit. You opened my mind. We had a very, it kind of blew my mind what you were doing. And
Yeah.
here I am, a guy's been doing this 17 years. I'm like, wait, Airbnb arbitrage? Hold up. This is how have it makes sense. Why would I have ever thought of that? But you get a bunch, that's why they call it a mastermind. You get a bunch of people together, like-minded people. Not only are you sharing ideas and growing, removing that glass ceiling, but there's a level of accountability, like, okay, listen, there's a lot of talkers and there's very few doers. So,
Mhm.
and the talkers will remove themselves, right? There's people that want to get freedom. There's people that want to buy real estate, right? But until you buy your first one, you're just a talker.
Yeah.
So how to give people the tools to become doers, but yet the accountability to say, okay, it's time, right? And that's what a good coach does. And I think that accountability. I know I need it.
Yeah.
I cannot get to the levels that I want to get to without somebody kind of hold me to what I say I'm going to do.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. So, David, you've done a ton of deals. Has there ever been like one deal that either was kind of like your favorite deal or a project that you loved working on, or even one that was a huge catalyst that propelled you forward? Because, like, I know I've had a couple where I just made huge licks on them, and it equated to me like tripling my portfolio within just a few months. Is there anything like that that's ever happened for you that we can like run the numbers on or go through?
Um, so yeah. Uh, okay, this is a little embarrassing. But
I'll laugh at you too hard.
in the art of transparency, again, I've never claimed to know everything,
Yeah.
right? And there there's these stories of these guys out there that have these undervalued properties that are under market rents, and that's the guys we want to, go after to try to purchase their properties. Well, turns out that I am one of those guys. So I had, so my properties were under third party management.
Yeah.
All of my properties in Winston, for the most part, were probably under $1,000 rent.
Yeah.
So after the last mastermind, I'm like, okay, I need to. I really, as much as I fought it and I fought it and I fought it, I need to open my own management company.
Yeah.
So step one of that is I needed to get an assistant. Okay. And I hired an assistant who's an absolute rock star. And she introduced me. She was like, Dave, you're charging $250 under market,
Yeah.
pretty much across the board. So when you talk about a game changer, I'm realizing now, granted, this is, 8 months later, 7 months later, and I'm like, holy smokes, I've been undercharging this whole time. And here I thought I was a master at real estate, you know?
Yeah.
So the point is you can always learn more. I don't care who you are. But in terms of a game changer, I'm a banker, right? I'm a numbers.
Yeah.
Think about this. And it doesn't matter if it's 100 properties or one property. Well, it kind of does. But if you're charging $800 and market rent's 1,000, that's $200 a month.
Yeah.
Now, did your repairs go up?
No.
Did your, uh, taxes go up?
No.
Did your insurance go up?
No.
Like maybe your management goes up a fraction, but that's pretty much for all intents and purposes $200 to the bottom line.
Yeah.
Now
Absolutely.
multiply that times 10, times
Yeah.
100, times 150. You want to talk about a game changer.
Absolutely.
So how much is that little bit of wisdom, that little nugget, that little seed, how much is that worth to somebody? Like,
Yeah.
that's the difference between working a 50-hour-a-week job and retiring,
Yeah.
like,
It definitely.
permanent. So that's been
Definitely.
the biggest game changer, in recent years, and I'm still in the process of that. So I'll have to report back in 6 months, but so far it's going very, very well.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah. I actually have a story I'd like to tell in tangent to that. So, about a year and a half ago, I took over management on these three properties locally for another owner, and they had been renting them long term for 10 years or so.
Mhm.
And the manager had rented them so low that they barely made anything, if not in the hole, after each turnover.
Right.
So for 10 years, didn't make any money. We turned them into an Airbnb. Now we put probably 60 to $80,000 into them,
Mhm.
um, and we're managing them, and they profited over $100,000 in the last year and a half with
Jeez.
those three properties.
Wow.
So, I mean, you see, like sometimes it's just the highest and best use that
Yeah.
you can change, and I mean, create a game changing situation. I mean, when you can profit,
Absolutely.
$80,000 a year on three properties.
Right.
Um, I mean, think about just the incredible impact that can make over 5 to 10 years.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I mean, you're talking, $7,000 a month.
Yeah,
It's on 3 properties.
yeah,
Not only do you pay yourself back in year 1 at least, for your initial investment.
definitely.
So that's really what it is. Now, had you not met that owner, guess where they'd be sitting right now,
They'd
you know?
still be losing money or breaking
They're
even.
out of the game. Maybe they would have sold,
Yeah,
without
good.
any, which makes me think, Quentin, what do we not know right now?
Yeah, exactly.
What's the super highway to the left of us? So it's the beauty of this game is we're all learning at whatever level it is. There's always something else that we could be doing. Um, but like myself, if you're passionate about, like, I love real estate. Like
Yeah.
I just, you can probably tell I get like worked up, like
Oh yeah.
just excited just to get the opportunity to talk about it. And, feel sorry for my wife because she gets to hear all this, barrage every day. But I really don't think there is a better creator of legacy wealth that exists out there, that creates all of the different tranches for income. It's surprising.
Yeah, I agree. And there might be another vehicle that makes more money, but the long term wealth, I think, is a key word
Yep.
because it's something solid and pretty much guaranteed. I mean, I hate to say the word guaranteed, but when you have a property sitting there like yours that is, either Section 8 or even like middle class rent, like there's
Mhm.
always going to be a middle class.
Yes.
They're going to need housing. So whether it's the lower class makes more money in a better
Mhm.
market and they can afford your units, or the upper class gets bumped down to middle class, you're always going to have a tenant. So
And that's what I like about it. I like the fact that it is because I had some higher end properties, right? So, and there's different ways and different games within the real estate market. My game is the buy and hold, Section 8, lower income, like you were saying. And I played in the other realms as well. And it's for me, it all comes down to cash flow.
yeah,
Like it's got to cash flow. And what I figured out, again, just being the banker, is I was like, I can have and again, I'm not going to say that someone that buys 200, $300,000 houses and rents those is not going to make profit. But for me, when I started looking at it and I was like, okay, a $250,000 house that I can rent out for $1,800 a month, I could sell that one, buy two properties, three properties that I can rent out for 1,000. That's $3,000 on the
yeah.
same. I'm just looking at return on investment. I'm just looking at cash flow. Now, do I have 3 times as many roofs and 3 times as many toilets? Those type things.
Yeah.
Um, so it's not apples to apples, but that $1,200 difference makes up a lot of, can cover a lot of headaches.
Oh yeah.
Um, so that's where I've kind of found my niche, and it's been it's just what I've become an expert at.
Yeah. Absolutely. So we're coming to the end, but I've got one question left.
Okay.
If you had one piece of advice for somebody either just getting started in real estate or maybe they haven't even thought about it yet, what would be the one thing you would tell somebody to enable them to be successful going into the real estate market, and like that would allow them to compete with all the investors and people that are competing in the market now?
Mm. Yeah, that's a really good point because it is competitive and it always has been competitive and it always will be competitive.
Yeah.
So I would say two things. I'm going to give a twofold answer here. Um, Number one is you got to get the knowledge. I know it's so cliche. It's so cliche,
True
but
that.
like your number one investment is your brain, right? Is
Yeah.
is who you are. Is the knowledge that you bring because if we took all, if you've heard all the gurus say this, right? If you stripped all my wealth away, I'd build it back in a year.
Yeah.
I don't make that claim personally.
Yeah.
It might take a couple of years, but it really is true. It's like you have to invest in yourself.
Yeah.
And then the second part is we all know those people, and I've mentioned this before, this analysis to paralysis, right? I would rather take somebody that just jumps in and does it as opposed to somebody that has all the knowledge, your engineer type that just has all the knowledge and doesn't do anything with it.
Yeah.
So it's really twofold. I don't want somebody jumping in the pool without at least reading a book on how to swim.
Yeah.
The same token, I don't want somebody that could tell you the circumference of the pool and the depth and the temperature. Get in the damn pool, right? So, because that's the only way you're going to learn how to swim, and
Yeah.
and you're going to learn more. You know, get somebody that you can kind of tag team with that's going to tell you and be honest with you and transparent with you that says, "Don't buy that.
Yeah.
That's a mistake, and here's why."
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, so get the knowledge. Surround yourself with people that do it. And the thing is, and I think you would agree with this, Quentin, people in the real estate business, I'm not talking about realtors, okay? I'm
Hey,
talking about
that's,
investors. I got to preface that.
yeah.
We're very open to
Oh,
sharing.
yeah. Absolutely.
It's not a big it's not an ego thing. It's like a it's very open. Would you agree with that? Is that what's been your knowledge?
I would. I mean, there's a few people, a few bad apples that won't
Yes.
tell you anything, or they're extremely secretive. But I'd say 95% of people I've ever met, I mean, they'll lay it all out for. I mean, as long as I'm not trying to leech off of them, as long as
Right.
I'm approaching with a relationship and not just trying, you know, walking up to them with dollar sign eyes.
Right.
You know, everybody's extremely open. They're willing to share. They're willing to help. Um, so I would definitely agree, and it's one reason why like I think I'm in the place I am because I run to like if I don't have the answer, I run to somebody immediately to try to get it.
Mhm.
And,
Yeah.
everybody's willing to share. Everybody's willing to help, and I think it comes from like us being in that situation before, us
Yep.
not having any money, us hitting hard times, and like
Yep.
there may have been one or two people that were there for us, and so it's kind of our way of giving back. So I totally agree.
Yep. Yep. That's a good point.
Well, thank you so much, David. And if I don't see you before then, I'll see you on May 12th. At the,
Absolutely.
it's going to be a great time. I'm super excited to get everybody together and just drop some knowledge.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it.
All right, David. I'll see you then.
All right, Quentin, take it easy.
You too.